Hey everyone, can everyone hear me fine and see my screen?
We can hear you.
Okay, nice. Yeah, thanks Kim for the introduction. Hi everyone, I'm Jerry Zhang from University of Washington, and I'm super excited to present our work, ChartA11y, designing accessible touch experiences of visualizations with blind smartphone users. This work is done during my internship at Microsoft Research in collaboration with John Thompson, Aditi Shah, Manish Agrawal, Albert Sakaya. Sorry. Oh,
We're not seeing it well. You're screen sharing, but it's just a blank screen.
that's weird. Just give me 1 second. Let me retry that. Is that
Yeah, all
better?
good. Excellent.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Hi everyone, again, I'm Jerry John, and I'm presenting my work ChartA11y. And since I already read the title, I'm not going to continue, but unfortunately I'm not physically attending, but I'm just DM away on Discord or by email, so feel free to reach out. So I'm just gonna get started. The accessible visualization research community has witnessed large advancement over the past few years to make chart a highly visual form of media accessible to blind and low vision users. The ways of making charts accessible have evolved from all text-based design to a more customizable and multimodal interaction design. And also in terms of methodologies, researchers are also adopting a more participatory or co-design method than traditional prototype-based user studies. So guided by all the prior research, we want to move one step forward. So first, is it possible to enable direct touch access to chart elements instead of relying on keyboard to indirectly receive the curated audio and speech feedback? And second, can we look at charts beyond line and bar charts to more complex charts like multi-series scatter plots? So in our work, we wanted to address both questions by conducting an 8 month co-design journey with two blind partners. They engaged in the research process rather than being just study participants who provide usability feedbacks. And the TLDR result is that in the final design session, both co-designers could independently discover insights from a brand new scatter plot, just like how sighted people take a peek at the chart. So as is shown on the right side of the slide, both co-designers were able to tell data distribution among different series and potential correlation between X and Y values, and identify outliers of a specific series, all based on their independent explorations. So how is this achieved? I will now dive into the ChartA11y system details. So ChartA11y is built as an iOS application. So we simulated the process of how users encounter an online visualization on the web and then choose to open this open this chart in our app with the assumption that we have the data source of the chart. The ChartA11y system is powered by the chart reader engine, which was introduced in prior research published at ChartA11y. And upon entering the mobile app, users will first be able to access overall description, talking about the basic information like axis and series, and then they will be able to double tap and activate the interactions within the chart in a dual mode setting. So this dual mode setting is the core mechanism of the ChartA11y system, where blind users could effortlessly switch between to have a combined understanding of the chart. We're calling them the semantic navigation framework mode and direct touch mapping mode. So the semantic navigation framework works as if the whole touch space on the mobile screen is populated with scaled rectangular views, so that blind users would always be able to continuously and intuitively touch the chart element. Their fingers will always hit some chart component on the screen and get some feedback. We call this interaction finger reading without any blank area. So in this mode, we directly adopted iOS voiceover gestures as the input method, which gives blind users a familiar environment to operate on. The gestures include continuous panning, as we just introduced, the finger reading, and then double tap to activate and dive deeper into the next navigational level, or just swipe left or right to switch to previous or next item, etc. So we also put the user configurations in the accessibility router feature in iOS, including to turn data sonification on and off, so that the system will display audio, sound, or the text speech. And they can also switch between the multiple series, if there's any different series in the chart, using the series router by swiping up and down. So for more technical details, please refer to our paper. So now we'll talk about how users receive output. So the feedback of the semantic navigation framework contains two parts: the speech text and the non-speech audio. So for the speech text, we have an accessible narration design where it gives text-based descriptions in different levels. So here we're using a scatter plot as an example. So the narration will go from describing the data distribution in a specific bin to the current series, which in this example, a penguin species out of 3 species, and then to a smaller data cell divided from bottom up in the data bin. And for the non-speech audio, we designed a series of different data sonifications and encodings. For example, in the scatter plot, we are using the duration of the sound to indicate how dense a cell is distributed with data point. I'm going to show a quick video clip of how it works. I really hope the audio will be working.
Sonification. Sonification on.
Here I'm turning on the sonification. So just to briefly explain, the current focus series is switched to the blue one shown on the right side of the slide, which mainly takes over the upper left corner of the chart. So the audios are generally representing data from left to right and then from bottom to up. So the short tick sound indicate that there is no data in the cell, and the longer musical sound means that there are more data points in this cell. So here I'm showing another example from the same chart, but in the cell level of the scatter plot. Yes, so again, please refer to our paper for more detailed description of how the speech and non-speech audio design works. We just have too many nuanced design in it to be covered in the talk. So now I'm going to introduce the direct touch mapping mode, which allows users to have direct access to chart elements like data points. So the fundamental interaction logic here is a similar form of finger reading. So blind users would continuously touch on the data points and receive both audio and haptics feedback. So I would, given the time, I will only talk about two major and interesting features in direct touch mapping mode. First, we developed a dynamic scanning radius mechanism when blind people use their fingertips to scan this area. So in ChartA11y, users' fingertips would be treated as a round region, and as they move, they will hit data points, which gives them a short and imminent haptic feedback, as if they actually touched a dotted data point on a swell paper or something. So the fingertip scanning window size will dynamically adjust based on the local density of the data point, ensuring that the users can detect both densely packed areas and isolated outliers. Another unique mechanism we have is called directional log feedback. So we noticed a significant challenge for blind users, which is to maintain a consistent movement direction, which would cause big misunderstandings on the spatial distribution if your movement is deviated without knowing. So this is actually very common in our design sessions and is very hard even within a very handy device like a smartphone. So to counteract this, we implemented this directional log feedback, which activates when the user moves sequentially in a straight line across 3 data cells. So at this point, ChartA11y will lock onto the current movement direction, and then any deviation from this locked direction will trigger an audio cue, either a step up or step down audio tune, indicating that the users have moved off the course. This feature serves as a reminder or a counter for blind users to keep track of their finger movement with low cognitive load. So here I'm showing you another quick example of how users move their finger vertically, but then off track to a bit right, and then how they are able to correct this after hearing 2 audio tones. So finally, what I'm showing here is a chart used in our last co-design session where one of our blind co-author, Manish, used ChartA11y to read this complex scatter plot talking about the relationship between life expectancy and fertility rate. So the left side image on the slide shows his finger movements with red traces representing earlier movements and blue traces representing later movements. And after independent exploration, and as you can tell from the blue traces where it converged into the area full of data points, he successfully described the overall data distribution and the correlation among different values and differences between individual data series and the potential existence of outliers. So before concluding, we also have a few discussion points derived from our design journey, including some previously undocumented accessibility challenges of using touch to access 2D space, and how blind users acquire an integrated understanding of the chart across the two modes, since each mode has its own strengths and weaknesses in conveying information, and how user customization is needed, and not just in the speech output, but also in the ways users configure their input, like gestures and touch. We also talked about the user empowerment in the age of AI and then the need of more in-depth studies beyond co-design journey. Again, please refer to our paper for more additional findings about this. And that's it. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. We have time for maybe one question.
Should I just
Please.
Hey Jerry, Frank Elavsky here from
Hi,
CMU. Can you hear me? Am I going through?
Yeah.
Great, yeah. Yeah, I love this work. It's awesome. Super great talk also. I just am really curious if you think that the findings you have here will shape maybe the design of what encodings we choose when we visualize. Are there certain ways to represent shapes or distribute data or chop it up that you think could improve these types of interactions in the future?
Yeah, thanks Frank for the great question. So I'm just gonna go back maybe to the place where I showed the encodings and applications. So indeed, this is a tough challenge when we design ChartA11y because like different users, even within our two design partners, they have slightly different preference based on their previous experience with charts and their like knowledge on these different charts like scatter plot versus line charts and bar charts. So I would say that this just highlights the need of making everything customizable based on their need. So like even for the data applications and encodings, like what if we can just like encoding the pitch and the duration and the other like the musical instruments, for example, like to map these different attributes of the chart and all based on their needs. And also like the cognitive load is another big concern in this because we don't want to convey too much information in a single musical sound. If it encodes too much information, like they will just be overloaded. So I would say there's still a huge, like a ton of customization dynamics between these HTTP studies, and that's one of the major things I want to do in the future, like for the rest of my PG studies. So yeah, I'm happy to chat more offline.
Of course, love
about
to.
it. It's
Thanks,
very
Jerry.
important.
Great. Thank you very much. And Jerry will be on Discord if you have questions, more questions to ask him. So thank our speaker again, please.